All right, welcome everyone to class 5. We're going to be covering over underwriting and multifamily syndications. And today I'm really lucky that we have one of our OG mentors, Chris Tao, in the hood to teach us more about this. The reason why I brought Chris out is because he is actually one of the first people who taught me about syndications around 2.5 years ago when SARE first started. I didn't know even the word at that moment. So he gave us a lot of lessons. He taught us underwriting for some of our commercial homie ponds. And so I felt like this is a really great opportunity for him to come on over, not only to really teach us about the underwriting, but he is a syndicator himself, and he has that ability to, let you roast him, as in throw all the questions at him because he can do it. And this is coming from me as a perspective of an investor. So I want to also show you guys some of the cool resources that we have. So again, before we really dive into things, I want to thank our sponsors who really made this event possible throughout this year. They've been helping us out with all events locally and all over in different states, and also SARECon. We are also going to have them help us out with another field trip coming to Florida in end of February. And I'll have more information for you guys around the end of the month, because all the information right now is still in my head. It still needs to come out on my Excel sheet so I can get those out for you guys. But we will be heading to Florida soon, and I'll have Chris talk to you a little bit more about what we're thinking of in Jacksonville, because I'm still imagining it and he's going to help me come up with ideas. All right. So I want to introduce a new resource for you guys, and this is free. This is something I've been using myself. I first came across this when I was working with Cashflow Portal. One of our homies, Perry Jang, he's in there. You can see his little profile photo. He's actually the founder of Cashflow Portal, who created a software to help people do syndications, doing basically all the administrative stuff, making it streamlined more easily. And then he was like, you know what, as I'm doing all of this, he realizes that a huge barrier for people getting into investing into syndications are knowing how to connect with the syndicator. And when I first joined 2 years ago, I didn't know anyone until a lot later. I'm getting connected. Chris had connected me. I went to Dallas. I met a couple more, but these were really people who we knew. And then I got in. But like, I'm thinking, imagining as an investor, how do I ever meet these people? They're kind of like, low key, and, I don't have that much money. How will I even get their attention getting in? So cool thing was that Perry created the first social media network that focuses on helping investors discover syndicators and their offerings without the fear of getting inundated with like unwanted calls or emails. And so the cool thing with this is that it's the investors who will choose when they're ready to initiate conversation with the syndicator, and not the way around. So if you want that opportunity to just kind of like, surf their profiles, learn more about what they do, follow them kind of like an Instagram. And then whenever they have deals, it will show up under the deal section. So they will never call you. They will never email you until you are ready to book an appointment and talk to them. So feel free to lurk. I am one of the users, and I've been playing around with that. So how it works is that you'll create your investment criteria. Basically, you'll fill out a really short survey and a questionnaire to help them learn about the investment preferences. They'll also give you some recommendations on type of projects that you might be interested in. And then you can scroll around to check out their sponsor profiles. And if you are accredited, they also have different offerings available to you. And Chris will talk to you a little bit more about what it means to be an accredited investor. And then you'll also be able to check out the deals and then jump right in. And then with their platform, they're making it really different, because they're actually giving you an opportunity for some of the newer people to invest a minimum of $5,000. You'll have a platform that has all of your investments in one place. There's a CRM section where you can like take notes of like which sponsors you've talked to, take notes of your conversations, so then you can later on kind of just follow up with them. You can also put like a favorite mark on them and go back to it later and just review them. So I'm going to later on show you kind of an example of this, where we're going to go through just kind of look at one of the profiles and how you can surf around for those. And then in this, I'm going to move my head out of this because I look really annoying right now. And then there's a section in here where you follow them, and you can kind of subscribe to them with their information. If it's too much information, you can unsubscribe, and then it just tracks who the people you've met. And then this is my own personal one. You do see that I am investing in some of the syndications through the people I've met on the platform. So the cool thing with this is that you might be investing with 5, 6, or 7 teams, but it can aggregate all the information together in one place for you. It tells you total amount you've invested, how much you've distributed. So it's just a little bit more organized. And so I really like this. And then they also have an educational section where they have sections of different types of topics that they talk about. So I'm going to stop sharing right here and then kind of give you a shared screen of what that looks like. And again, I'm just doing this for fun. I don't, this is a free service, I'm just showing you guys what I've been playing around with lately. So, and I'm not promoting any particular syndicators or any particular service. This is a free web service thing. So I'm just kind of showing you guys. All right. So this is the connections thing I was talking about. So if I want to opt out, that's fine. I can do so. And look, our lovely Mr. Nelson is here. Ooh, my hubby's up here. Cool. And then this is the part I wanted to show you more on. So if there's friends in here that are new to learning about syndications, they basically have all the educational stuff here created for you, because their goal in mind is to really make it more easy to understand. So you can read through all of these educational pieces. And then the cool part I wanted to show you is actually what one of these profiles look like. So you'll have information about the way that they invest, the different markets, their sponsored units, like as in they are the GP for this many units. This is how much they've also invested in passive. They're working with over 200 something investors, cash and cash. So this information. You'll have some pictures of some of the projects that they've worked on, their bio. Some of the videos, that introduces the syndicators or some of the projects that they're working on. If they've done videos in the past or other interviews and podcasts, this is a way for them to kind of, aggregate all the information on here. This is their track record of what they've done. These are the passive investment deals that they've also done themselves. And then this is the part I kind of like more, actually. It's because an important part, I believe, with syndicators is you want to talk to people who they've invested with them and could give a referral or review. And so this is a section where people can write recommendations or what they felt about it. It could be positive, it could be negative, but this is kind of a really cool way of putting notes on this indicator. So right now this service is free. This is pretty new. So there's not like a lot of the reviews on. They've only been around for maybe about a year or so doing this, but there are a couple hundred syndicators on this. And then also later on, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to ask for help from Perry to help me connect with a couple more syndicator friends who are investing in different projects. And you know me, I like to make up stuff. And one of the new things I'm imagining and making shit up is called Roast a Syndicator, where I'm going to bring a syndicator, have them talk about what they do, and let us ask questions, all about what they do. So in different asset classes and different locations. And I'm also thinking of creating more like virtual round tables for us people who want to learn more about syndications or just have questions amongst ourselves. So these are things that we'll be launching more in 2023. But now I'm done with this part. I'm going to be handing the rest of the series or this episode to our good friend, Chris Tao, and he's going to talk to you guys more about from his point of perspective as a syndicator who invests all over the United States. So thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Annie. Let me load my PowerPoint real quick. Let's see. Hope everybody can see this. Okay. Takes a little while for this thing to load. Great. So basically today, picking back on what Annie just gone through, right? It's all about multifamily syndication. What is that all about? So a couple of things we want to do. I know a lot of you guys are listening here on Facebook or even in Zoom have a lot of experience in single family. So we want to definitely, put the right hat on and start thinking about multifamily. Okay. Check out cash flow. Okay. And then, so if you want to get into multifamily, how do you find which market to buy? And then I'll go through some of the general rule of thumbs, some general guidelines to help you figure out what is a good deal, and then some tools and tricks. And then if we have time, we'll go through an actual deal to look at, how do you go from the stuff that Chris talked about into real Excel and then come out to say, yes, this is a good possible deal, or no, this is something you should run away from. And lastly, we'll open up for questions. If you got questions, I got answers. Okay. All right, so we'll skip that part. So earlier we talked about putting on your multifamily hat. So just in a very straightforward explanation, if you're in the single family side, you're talking about improving the property, right? Buy low, sell high. You buy ugly duckling, you put paint on it, you put better hardware, countertops, stainless steel, granite countertops, improving the property so that you can probably get $100,000 pop when you sell, typical fix and flip model, burr, whatever you have, right? It's all about the property. Putting on the multifamily hat, we're talking about operating a business. Therefore, your sole focus is about improving the profit, okay? Profits, to overly simplify, is nothing more than revenue minus expenses. It doesn't matter the color of the property. It doesn't matter if you put in granite countertops, white or black appliances. If for whatever reason, just from better customer service, that's what we did in starting at San Marco in Jacksonville, Florida, better customer service, people love us, we can push rent. So we actually didn't spend money, unlike single family side where you are focused on the property, okay? So a lot of common questions I get about multifamily. Everybody get kind of overwhelmed by the number of zeros. So kind of ground ourselves, a couple questions, and then we'll touch base on some of these questions throughout the presentation. The number one question is, what's the difference between 506B and 506C? Without spitting out definition, just think of in IRS or in the government's eyes, it's a separation between rich and the poor, okay? Or average Joe. 506C, they consider you're the richer people. So there are two basic qualifications. One, you have net worth of more than $1 million, excluding your primary residence. So that could be in the form of stocks, retirement, living trust, whatever. The other qualification is if you're single, your annual income is $200,000. If you're married, $300,000 or more. So a lot of my California investor giggles, just about everybody in California in IT field qualifies as 200 and 300. So keep in mind, this is for the United States, this is how government looks at it. It doesn't really define rich and not the average Joe in that regard, but that's what it is. And then 506B is the average Joe who doesn't meet that qualification, okay? And then who can buy apartment complex? Just about anyone. I would say anyone with solid understanding of real estate in general. Don't just, I always kind of get scared or concerned if you start to read all these bigger pocket type of articles about, hey, using 100% other people's money, no money down to buy houses and flip. Don't use that mentality. Remember, we're changing our hats and we're doing multifamily. You do want to know what you're talking about. You do want to know you have money to invest, not just no skin in the game in a way. But in short, anybody can do this, okay? And what does it mean to be an LP investor? The easiest way to think about it, you as an LP investor, is no more than owning a stock in Tesla and Apple, right? You can watch all the news about what Elon Musk is doing, but your stock share, you cannot call him up and say, hey, Elon, I want you to slow down on Twitter or whatever it is. You kind of just have to ride that wave as they go. So that is the simplest way to think about what an LP investor. So what's the difference? What's the draw? Well, we have in real estate, we have a thing called cost segregation through depreciation. So by investing $50,000 into real estate, you could recognize $30,000 to $40,000 loss in the first year, where you can do that in any other stocks. So that's the biggest draw for being a passive investor in real estate, okay? And I'll cover the other ones later on. All right, so another major mindset I wanted to make sure everybody kind of carry going forward through the rest of the presentation. Multifamily is not a fast money. If you think about, hey, I'm going to repeat what the success I've done in, the fix and flip I did all around America, buy a house for $30,000 and sell it in 9 months for $200,000, walk away with $100,000 profit. That's not multifamily. Don't try it. Don't do it. There's a lot of rich people got arrested recently. I think they have that fast money and mentality that just didn't work. Okay. But so typically, if you want to invest in multifamily, whether as a GP or LP, you should start to think at a minimum 3 years. I put X amount of money in here. There's hardly ever I'm going to get it back before 3 years. Okay. The benefit is that this is going to be bigger money than it is in single family. Okay. The previous example, $35,000 turned into $200,000. You could potentially put in 50,000 and turn into 3x of that, or even 10x of that, depending on where. I have friends in Phoenix, Arizona, constantly bringing out 4x of their initial investment. So there's some big money that you can be making in multifamily. All right. So what does all this really kind of tie to? I like to explain it that what I'm about to share with you are basically a roadmap or a tour guide to your end goal, which is a pot of gold, right? We all want to make money through multifamily. We're not just here for pretty pictures and nice scenery. We want to get there to the final end, make a lot of money, and that's why we're doing that. So as a beginner, think in terms of walking a trail. We all been there before. You get a map, and then you get on this wide, beautiful, nice, manicured trail for you to walk on. And for this session, I want you to think that term, okay? What I'm about to show you, it's about general guidelines. Here's the protected trail. Don't steer off of it too much, or you could get hurt. As you get kind of used to it, maybe hear more about these kind of sessions, invest it into 1 or 2 deals. You're like, oh, okay, I see how this works. Now I can kind of take away the safety guard rails. Then you start to look into more like an expert, right? The trail gets a little narrower. There's no protection, just like the picture shown there. There could be deer that surprises you. There could be bear that come attack you. There's less safeguard, but I'm the guy in the little red shirt there. I'm your GP or your syndicator, your tour guy into more of a experienced trail that you can see more, do more, and get more out of it than your traditional safeguarded site. So, that all come from experience. Don't just take somebody's word and say, hey, let's go off this little dark alley and hopefully we'll get to a pot of gold or something. So keep that in mind. Don't sway too much. Okay. All right. So where's the money? Right? How do I find where the money is at? First, you got to know how to identify a market. I like this particular tag, this little icon here, because you want to make sure you keep your eye on the target. Okay. So how do you find the target? The easiest way, again, keep giving you a safe guardrail, okay, is stay with the Sunbelt states. These are known landlord-friendly states, so you don't have any rent control or nearly impossible ways to evict your tenant. So these are very landlord-friendly. Tenants don't pay up. We get them out very easy, okay? Out of those, the ones I'm in is Florida, Texas, and Kentucky, okay? And then from there, you want to cross-check the state that you like against multiple news headlines, okay? Which city or which state is getting all the jobs? Which cities are losing jobs? Who are coming into that state? Who are leaving that state, right? So if you look at one of the news articles, I put the link down below, it lists out the top 10 metros that has seen a major boom in 2022 that most likely will continue in 2023. So number one, it's Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Indiana. You start to see these patterns where the Sunbelt states are on these newsline articles about the same states that are doing really good, right? Because You want that increase in rent. You want that additional money so that you know, hey, there is a pot of gold at the end of the journey. You don't want to see the money flow the opposite direction you're headed. Okay. And on the flip side, you see they also listed out, they start to decline more and more. If you've been to SARECon 2022, I talked about how I love Texas, but I only want to invest in Austin, not very much about Houston, and they show up as minus 6%. Okay. So the next step down is now you found the state, you need a city. So what city you go? To keep it simple, I like International Airport. Why? Because when I go and try to buy these apartment complexes, I need to fly in, right? From Texas to Florida, heck no, I'm not driving that, right? But each time you visit that city, you're not going to immediately find something you want to buy. So there's going to be multiple trips. Well, how many people wants multiple layovers? So I like large international direct fly, go in, come in the morning, hit or miss, come back in the afternoon, enjoy the weekend with the family and so on and so forth, and not spending weeks and weeks out, just keep striking out. Okay. All right. So now you found a city you like. Well, how do you find which submarket? Okay. Still keeping the eye on the target here. The easiest way, use Riffin and realtor.com. Why? Because that's where most popular single family website. Okay. Realtor.com, any realtor nationwide. Once they click on that button, share to third party, it all funnels to realtor.com. So one website for free, you can see almost all, I would say 90% or more single family posting in all America. And what I did is I simply just filtered by $500,000 homes and up, right? I want to figure out where the rich people live. So if you look at this map, it shows you that Tampa, majority of the rich people are on the west side and down south, right? You have 129. I don't know if you can see my cursor down here, lower right, lower left, 129 homes. That's more than $500,000. In the opposite, there's only 14 and 13 on the northeast side of the town. So you can see that there's a clear divide in that Highway 275. To the left of it, it's where all majority of the rich $500,000 and up homes are. And then on the right side, a lot less. So it's very clear you don't want to be dead smack in the middle. There's just no one with $500,000 home. But then there's something up north that you can play with. Okay. So I circle the ones, if I was looking at this map, these are the areas I would spend more time on. Why not 129 and 166? Because these homes are $500,000 and up, right? So if I find an apartment complex, even at discount, let's say 50%, that's $250,000 a door, right? Times 10, that's 2.5 million. Times 100, holy cow, that's $25 million. And you start getting up very quickly. So I still want to be, I like areas where it's not very poor, like clearly in the middle is just no $500,000 home at all, to something that has potential, right? Maybe a $400,000 home that's getting appreciated, getting improved, moving into the $500,000 range, right? So that will be where I start to spend more time to look at what are some of the quirks in that particular 3 red circles that I highlighted to know if that's a market I want to be in. Okay. All right. So now you really zone down into a sub-market. You're looking at the street level, you're looking at zip codes level. So how do you figure all this out? Okay. And this is why I think all of you guys are very good at math. So I like to convert this into easy math formula for everybody to digest. First and foremost, PP stands for purchase price. Multifamily, this is the golden rule, golden formula if you want. It's NOI divided by cap rate. Okay, NOI is net operating income. Basically is your revenue minus all your expenses, okay, minus your property tax and minus your insurance. Mortgage do not count, okay, and net operating income. in SARE count, I kind of talked about why mortgage doesn't count. Now cap rate, that's a strange number. So what it does is that because of this formula, top institutional investors likes to use this as a evaluation number, but without going into deep, you can use CoStar or ask your broker, hey, what's the average cap rate within this market? And they'll tell you 5, 6, 7%. And just take that NOI divided by cap rate. That should give you a purchase price. Usually the broker will tell you the purchase price. And you ask them, hey, what's the average cap price? What's the average cap rate in the submarket? And then you can reverse and calculate what this property's NOI should be. Then you kind of know it's overpay or underpay. Okay. And then from there, so you bought it. What are you going to do with it? Okay. You want to increase rent. And that's what we call pro forma rent, your future rent, right? And all the leases, qualification, and we do this in Jacksonville and also Texas property as well. Quality tenant is really 3 times your future rent. So if you do a value add, keep the math easy, you want to take the existing rent up to $1,000. $1,000 is your future rent. So you want somebody to make 3 times, which is $3,000 per month, which is $36,000 a year. That's your tenant's annual income. Okay. If they make below $36,000, they don't qualify. Okay. Now, so we talked about a lot on NOI. Okay. So what's the right NOI? Once you kind of figure out you want to do $1,000 rent, you just multiply by number of units. That should give you your income. Okay. NOI is per year, not per month. Okay. So you take your $1,000 rent times number of units you have times 12 to get your annual rental revenue. If you're charging for parking, reserve parking, valet trash, water bill sharing, we call it RUBS. All these considered as other income, so you want to include that. A quick rule of thumb is divide by half. Okay, that should be your expense ratio. That should be your expense amount, giving you about roughly 50%. Okay, so then you just kind of figure out, is it achievable? All right. So this pro forma rent, I used to kind of use it as a guidepost, but I want to leave it as optional for you guys. Okay, because it's very situational. The reason this is there is because, hey, if I can rent for the same price that I can buy a house, why would you? Right. But we start getting into a little, if what happens, there are some lifelong renters, no matter how much money they make, they just don't want to rent. Right. So that's why I want to leave it as optional and kind of not overburden you guys with too much information. Okay. Now, a pro tip, once you kind of figure out you want to raise rent by $1,000, not just because you want to, means you can achieve. You want to make sure you verify your pro forma rent against at least multiple properties within the 2-mile radius of where you want to buy. If everybody else, your next door neighbor, is only renting out $800, you're going to fall flat on your butt. Okay. But if luckily somebody's renting it out for $1,500 a month, now you can readjust, maybe not 1,000, 1,200, right? 1,300. So that you want to make sure your assumption is correct by checking other neighbors. Okay. Other tips and tricks. Commercial real estate, to those that might not be familiar with, we actually share a lot of information. Just like single family, when you make an offer to buy a multifamily, there's going to be multiple offers. But if you have a good relationship with your commercial broker, you can ask them, hey, is my $1 million good enough? He's going to say, oh, no, you need to be $1.5 million. And then you say, no, you're crazy. What kind of crazy number are you talking about? How about 1.2? He goes, oh yeah, that will at least get you into the top 5. They will tell you that. Because nobody want to waste time and deal with crazy number from 2 million to $500,000 and all kinds of number in between. Multifamily, we don't like 20, 30 offers. We like to keep it down 15 for the first cut and about 5 for the second cut for best and final. Okay. Because every time somebody has to go out and tour this thing, we don't want to tour 20 times over. Okay. So if you want to get into commercial real estate, start talking to your local brokers. And we're not talking about analytic company. They also own apartment.com. They do a lot of research on multifamily. Say they data mine everybody, 50 units and plus. So if you have friends, hint, hint, that have access to CoStar, ask them to run it for you. And it will be property specific. It gives you all the rental comps, SOCOMs, sub-market analysis, who are the big developer that's coming in within your area, is throwing a lot of development dollars or trending that people are leaving out of town. I was pulling CoStar report during COVID. Everybody was talking about how terrible New York is. And now look at where New York is today. So CoStar, if you can get access, that's your best friend. All your data set in one spot. Everything I talked about in the prior slides, it's pretty much there for you to consume. Okay. If you cannot get CoStar, apartment.com is your second best friend. Okay. It's free. You can just get online, type in an address, look at nearby apartments, and start to see the advertised rent, right? Not always accurate, but it is a starting point for you to quickly do analysis, okay? And then lastly, spend a lot of time in Google. I spend a lot of time just look at where the big monies are going. Big development contracts, like I live in Austin, Texas. It's no secret that Elon Musk developed a little factory in Austin, and then Samsung decided to come in as well. So those are billion-dollar news lines, right? If you can buy an apartment complex next to Samsung or Tesla or next to Apple, easy money. So look for development news, look for big players making big announcements, okay? And then lastly, not all jobs are equal, right? I particularly don't like to look at Amazon warehouse announcements. I like to look at high-tech job announcements, hospitals, right? Higher paying salaries. That's going to stick a lot better than Amazon warehouse. I don't know why in my neighborhood, Amazon's building a new coal store, but that's them. I wouldn't count my business decision because of a new coal store open nearby. Okay. All right. So if we have time, Annie, do we have time, or do you want to open for Q&A?
Yeah, you can keep going. And then if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat box and then we can answer them if it's part of it. What we're talking about. If not, we can save those at the end too. So you guys feel free to drop in questions.
Okay. Well, you guys want to give me a quick yes or no on the chat box, whether you guys want to look at a live deal to see kind of how all this trickles down?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, so, kind of carry on to development news, construction news, right? This is a particular property we're actively looking, okay? We don't have it under contract, so I can actually talk about it. If you take my lesson here, if you want to compete against it, that's also welcome. But yeah, that's a benefit of being able to have an open conversation on a deal that is not under contract. Okay, why we look at this deal? First of all, found it on the news article. The links are at the bottom. $2 billion development that's going to cover 20 square miles in Tampa. A development map is also there. I listed out there for you. I mean, this thing is huge. It's going to have more hospitals, more student housing, high-end retail, high-end business hotels. It's a 5-year project. They started in 2020, and they already broke ground. So it's all centered around the University Mall in Tampa, Florida. Okay. Anyone that's familiar with Tampa, University Mall is right next to USC, University of Southern Florida. Okay. Another large ranked university. So that yellow square, university, USF is actually in the green square, but that yellow square is the first phase. And then the green box is the second phase. What you see in the purple line is the biking trail they're putting in. So now what they're proposing is that you're going to have a lot of business activity there. Students still can be able to live off campus and ride bicycle to campus. Okay, so there's, wherever people ride a bicycle, they need to stop by to buy drinks, buy lunch, do whatever, right? So now they're going to stop and spend money. So then now that economic impact starts to trickle down to even the waiters, the bus boys at the restaurants, and so on and so forth, right? Which all is going to live in an apartment complex. I am not targeting for the doctors that's out there, because my demographic is, my business plan particularly don't want to go that level, but certainly your student is not even good either. Your nurses, teachers, right? Your restaurant busboys, waiters, and so forth, even bartenders, love those guys. The more money they make, the more I can push rent. Okay, so I'm going to switch over and bring up the Excel.
Chris, a quick question about the population of people you're bringing in that you're targeting. So are you concerned about that these are more transient tenants than they're just, you're paying a lot in like turnover fees?
That's a good question. So that's why I like to look at the overall development, right? If it just, hey, McDonald's opened a new store or Starbucks opened a new store, then no, I wouldn't count on that. But if you have $2 billion coming in, right? Just I like to envision how the money is going to be spent, right? We're 2 years into this $2 billion project. Construction is still in full phase for probably the next 3 years. Construction worker will come in as a temporary workforce, and they need housing. So construction workers makes more money. So immediately I can see a 5-year construction plan. There's 3 more years for me to capitalize on. Okay. And then these guys are not going to stay in their apartment after work. They're going to go out drinking, right? And kind of start dissecting into their lifestyle to say, okay, where are they going to spend money? Are they going to spend money nearby, which helps the waiter and waitress and the bartender, right? Are they going to play golf? Whatever it is, right? So I start to kind of zero in on how they're going to spend money, and then figure out if I need to be which part of that development area. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Awesome. Good question. Keep it coming. Anything else? All right, so I'm going to do it this way. Can everybody see this?
Yep. Excel sheet.
Awesome. Okay. I purposely take out the address and the property name, so we still kind of keep it a little bit of a secret. If you spend enough time kind of repeat what I just said, go through what I just done, you'll be able to figure out what property this is. Okay, so quick high level, if you were at the SARE, basically my rule of thumb, right, is if it's hitting 15% IRR, above 5% cash on cash, about double the money in 5 years, that's something solid you need to drill in more. So this is an older version of how I'm on where we at today, based upon the offer we submitted. but at least you can see this is where Chris starts to like, okay, this is exciting. I want to spend hours and hours on understanding more. Okay. So we're within that area already. Okay. So what are we doing? We pegged this property at, okay, hold on, let me back up a sec. This is a 1984 product. It's not written here. It's a 1984 product. Okay. 176 unit, and it's within close proximity to the University Mall, right in that yellow square of $2 billion construction. So from that, we kind of figured out the price to win it is about $2.7 million. Okay. With about, so that gives us about 66% loan to value. And we're spending about $1.7 million to bring it up to the next level. Okay. Interest rate, this has already been provided by the lender. We are at a blended rate of 5.8%. So we're getting two loans on this. There's a primary and a secondary. The secondary is basically covering the construction costs. Okay. This is a 7-year loan. We got through our business partner relationship, we're able to get a full term, which means you only pay interest only for your entire term of the loan, 7 years. And it's MRIs at 35 years instead of your standard 30 years. So we got even a lower bracket when the principal do kick in, okay, if we keep it more than 7 years. All right, closing costs, that's for all the lenders, title. What I want to kind of show you this is that more you hear about multifamily, all these little things that causes you, it start to sound very much like residential. For example, I still had to do a title pool, right? Title search and all that stuff. Still closing at the title company, still have legal. Well, that's a difference. We don't use standard commercial purchase agreement. Everything is completely drawn scratch from lawyers that you hire. Okay. So legal fee cost more, but I still hire a third party to do full inspection on every unit. So no different than residential. They take pictures, check the hot water heater, climb in the attic, make sure the insulation is there. Very much similar to residential, right? They get on the roof, make sure the roof is good. So all that is becoming part of the closing costs. Okay. The additional cost on top of the purchase price in order for you to buy it. Okay. We do about 1.5 to 2% on closing costs. I mean, working capital, because we know that there's some unexpected stuff. As soon as you take over, right, there are probably some prepaid items. If you're doing a large rehab, you want to give them probably a 10% deposit for your vendors to come in and start working. So that's where the working capital comes in. And then we have acquisition fee and then asset management fee. So as GP or deal sponsors, we spend a lot of time, and then a lot of us actually put our own credit towards the property, whereas the LP does not. So you'll hear terms like a recourse loan or a non-recourse loan, okay, which means personal guarantee. All residential homes are personal guarantee, whether it's investment property or your primary home. You don't pay, lender come after you, knocking on your door, say, hey, you have to pay. That's right. They take your house, but they ask you to pay. Commercial real estate, majority of the time is non-recourse. With current debt market, we are looking at partial recourse. Okay. So that is where, the major risk that the deal sponsor have to carry on versus a passive investor, no more than a stock purchase. So whatever happened to Elon Musk has no bearing to you personally. Okay. Reversion cap rate, we're not going to talk about that right now. A general rule, 1% higher than the average, not 1% higher than what you pay for the market average. So I had a slide earlier talking about get it from the CoStar or ask your broker. Okay. Cost of sale, which is basically the opposite, right? You got to pay a broker to advertise it for you. They want to eat, they want to get paid. So those kind of fees. Compensation, right? Sponsor compensation. This is very common. You'll see a 70-30 split or 80-20 split. Okay. punch all the number in, including some of the pro forma rent we kind of talked about earlier. Hey, what if I want to raise rent from 800 to 1,000? So that's what this is. Current rent based upon the financial they provide you. I just put it in here. And through my market research, I'll be able to figure out where is my target. Is it 1,000? Is it 2,000? Okay. So after you put all this in and then calculating your expense ratio, all right, everything that goes into running a property. So on a single family side, if you do long-term rental or short-term rental, especially to short-term rental, you kind of know, oh my God, this stuff is expensive running a little hotel kind of place. Every penny start going in. Everybody wants to get paid and everything's an expense. So you plug all that in and comes out the answer, whether you can or whether you should or should not buy this property. Okay, I'm going to take a pause here. Any question?
Yeah, Jay asked if we can talk or see the calculations for depreciation effects and corresponding tax expense.
Depreciation is not part of the initial purchase decision. Okay. Well, so we as a syndicator, we figured out how much money this whole project can be made. Okay. So if you think about this particular number, okay, it's almost 100%. So if you invest 100,000 in 5 years, we'll give you 100,000. That's what that means. Okay. We don't talk about depreciation in these calculations because that is actually lower your investor or your personal income tax. Okay. So, for example, I'm a full-time syndicator. My bread and butter is looking at an apartment complex. I pay little taxes. So when I buy an apartment complex, because I don't pay a lot of taxes already, I don't think about, is this going to give me a $200,000 tax write-off or not? But I'm more interested on, hey, if I put in $100,000, is it going to be a $200,000 or a $300,000 return? Does that make sense? Because if you're on a higher tax bracket, you'll be very interested about, do I get $100,000 tax write-off? Whereas somebody who isn't making that much money might not be keen to that. So that shouldn't be a decision factor if this property is able to carry the profit on its own without additional help. Does that answer the question?
Got it. And I think, hey, Jay, do you want to clarify your question? He had a follow-up saying he meant for the yearly operating expense bill. Do you mean by like, what's the property taxes? Like, how do you estimate what's the new property taxes?
Jay, you can come off mute and just ask.
Go ahead. Jay, we can't hear you though. Oh, okay. All right. And I guess maybe that I'll pretend that is that question. Like, how do you calculate the property
Oh, that's fine.
taxes then for the new purchase?
How do you calculate the taxes? Yes. So, all right. So that's a state by state, county by county, complicated question. So the easiest way to do this, every county has what's called a mill rate, their tax rate. Okay. Generally is the purchase price times the mill rate equal your new property tax liability. Things get a little crazy depending on which county you're talking about. Florida would give you 15% discount or appraise you at 15% of the purchase price just because they're nice. Phoenix, Arizona, even better. They don't even reassess. They only allow to increase the value by 10%, if I remember right, 2 years ago. So Phoenix is a very interesting very interesting county because what I just said is If a property was first purchased at 5 million, 2 years or 3 years later, sold it for 10 million, Phoenix, Arizona, they only assess it at $5.5 million, 10% more, not at the 10 million. And then they fully assess your tax accordingly. Their tax rate is much higher, like 20 something percent, but I'd rather take a $5.5 million calculation than a $10 million calculation. So their tax is really, really low. Austin, Texas, I hate them. Okay. They want 95% of the purchase price, and there's no second way around it. San Antonio, you can get away with 85. Dallas, you can get away with 85. I heard my friends from Dallas start creeping up 87, 90% ish. So yeah, that's general formula. Purchase price times rate times the discount. Okay. All right. What's another one? Yearly operating expense. All right.
That was about the tax thing, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. So majority of your operating expenses fall into one category of this or another. I'll make it bigger so everybody can see. Where's my Zoom? Here we go. All right. So we're hiring a professional management company. They want to get paid. So that's the fee they charge. And if depending on which property management company you talk to, some of them charge you 3%. Okay. But they pass the payroll down to you. This particular management company we work with in Florida, it's all one flat cost, which includes payroll and advertisement fees. Okay. So just kind of think in terms of, well, we were all college students one time in our life, I guess. If you remember the time we actually rented an apartment, right? How did you know about the apartment? It's either through some type of locator or online advertisement or some type of a news pamphlet, right? So those cost money to make, or in the case of locators, they want a commission. So that's all cost. Okay. When you get to the apartment, there are property owned utility bills, like, leasing office, right? They got to have their own internet, their printer, their television, lights, electricity, water, and so on and so forth, for you to even just go into the leasing office. So that's their share of utilities, common area expenses, right? The people you talk to at the leasing office, they get the salary. So that's payroll. And then when you move out, for example, you had a large party before your graduation, punch a hole in the wall. Well, you didn't want to pay for it. Now the property has to eat it up. So that's part of the repair and maintenance cost, right? Who does the landscaping? Property paid someone to mow the lawn, water the trees and the grass. So that's part of maintenance and landscaping costs and so on and so forth. Of course, there's, because it's a business, so you have a business insurance, and then you have property tax you have to pay, we talked about. Replacement reserve, that is generally for unexpected repair type due to normal wear and tear, like AC. Over a certain period of time, AC breaks. Nobody's fault, it's just old. So that will go into the repairment cost, replacement reserve. Is insurance really more than real estate taxes? Yeah, Michael, I asked the same damn question. Thanks to Hurricane Ian, which just missed Tampa by a hair. That is pretty much what she quoted me. This is the same insurance agent that renew our Jacksonville, Florida insurance. And that one was quoted at $900 per unit. I almost had a heart attack when she gave me that number. I was like, are you sure? Yeah, but she said, well, just stay with that one number. If I can save you $50 per unit, I owe her dinner and something like that. So, okay. So I'll go with what she's got. Yeah, crazy hurricanes. What else? Real estate property tax? Real estate taxes, yeah, property tax, yes.
Well, Chris, and I have a question regarding like the interest rates and loans and the cost part. So how if it takes a really long time for you guys to close these commercial loans, then how do you guys do the underwriting to figure out what's the like that the rate that you guys are using? And then I hear something about like the cape was it cap rat or what was it called? Like capping it so that
Rate
it doesn't
cap,
go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rate
How do
cap.
you guys calculate those and determine for your underwriting?
So typically commercial real estate closes in 60 days. Okay. What the Fed's doing, it's unreal, unprecedented. We are what, nine straight rate increase in 12 months. Okay. A lot of deals recently have to reduce prices because of that. Normally, when I bought my first apartment in 2019, 60 days interest rate did not move. Okay. So what lender quote you today usually is good for they will tell you on the lending sheet, right? The term sheet rate is good for 45 days. Okay. As you get closer, you can start to pay all your closing costs upfront to what we call a rate lock. Okay. So that as you get close to 30 to 45 days, you can say, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have all the funds that I need. This deal is solid in my mind. All the legal checked out, all my inspector checked out, everything is good. Don't have any major title issues. We're good to go, right? I will basically pay almost all the closing costs, lock the rate, and this thing is not going anywhere. For the past 9 times, interest rate keep going up by 75 basis points. That's a huge jump. Okay. Here, let me show you something. 5.8. Let's do, what is that? 6.6. Somebody keep me honest here. What, 8% jump? That thing becomes a terrible deal. Yeah, I always want to be above 15% IRR, and now it's below that, right? And then not only interest rate goes up, most times when interest go up, your proceed gets cut. They come back and tell you, hey, I'm not going to lend you as much money. So now you all of a sudden have to come up with more money. That's very difficult. Okay. So that's the first, hopefully that answered the first part. Most likely it doesn't change, but currently you just have to take the roller coaster ride. The second part to your question, on a bridge loan, okay, a variable interest rate, imagine what, 9 times 75 basis point, 3% interest rate. Well, somebody do the math for me. 3 to 4% interest rate increase. So imagine you're into this flexible loan, and then within 1 year you jumped up 4% interest rate, right? So eventually you don't have enough money to even pay for the mortgage. So what you can do is buy a insurance. It's called a rate cap. You pay upfront 50. Now it's like $800,000. Okay, to say, okay, I know my deals will not work at 8% interest rate. Okay, so I'm going to buy a rate cap at 7%. Anything above 7%, the insurance is going to kick in. Not my problem. But if it's always below 7%, you just wasted money. Just like insurance, car insurance, if you want to think of it that way. You pay car insurance, 20 years, no accident, where'd the money go? Bye-bye. They don't give it back to you. But if you do get an accident, not much out of pocket. Does that answer your question, Annie?
Yep. And then so you said that you were doing two loans. One is for the construction and then one is for the 7 year. So is the construction loan, do the rates change like by the month or is it like by the year?
By the month.
Oh
So we
shit.
have an agency debt, which is fixed for 7-year term. And then we have a 7-year bridge debt, variable interest rate for the construction piece.
Got it. And say with the construction loan and things are looking really bad or like you might not finish, what happens at that 7 year mark when you have to refi and say like the interest rates are way higher? Or
Well,
is
so
that a thing?
it's a little bit, let me kind of massage your question a little bit. So the rehab loan,
Yeah.
most of the time they, unless it's a critical business plan. Let's say if you're fixing a major plumbing issue, okay, and the lender's counting on you to repair it to justify the purchase price, right? Then they will force you to say, hey, you better repair this thing, okay? If you're just doing an interior value add to boost rent, you don't have to finish. And if you, it's usually on a draw basis. If I spend the money first, show receipts, proof of payment, lender give it back to me, okay? Only then the payments due. So for this one, for example, we have $1 million in rehab construction bridge loan. That $1 million reserve, it's not going to charge me interest until I start tapping into it. So if all of a sudden market turn in 2023, knock on wood, and I decide not to do any rehab, it doesn't cost me anything, right? But if I have a major roof repair, then the lender say, well, you better repair it. Otherwise, I don't want to deal with, I don't want to foreclose a property with a major roof leak. That's the mentality. All right.
Mhm.
Good questions. Anything else?
There's a question from Michael. He asks, for pro forma rent, what is the expected timeline? For example, not all units will be remodeled at the start. Does one try to be more specifically timing it so that 15% each time are remodeled each year?
Good question. Good question. The insert is in rent roll. And I'll flash this up for you. So, and I mentioned earlier that in commercial real estate, they tell you a lot. Okay. So I am going to try to open this without showing people's name, because that's private information. So this is the actual rent roll. It actually tells you when the lease start, which is when they moved in and when they moved out. So glad you asked that question, Michael. If your deal sponsor is very savvy and pay attention, he or she should time the rehab schedule based upon when the lease expires. So majority of time is 12 months lease, right? On a perfect day, you buy the property in January, everybody should move out by December, right? That's 12 months lease. So on a good day, you can finish your rehab budget within 12 months. Nobody finishes rehab budget in 3 months. That's why I'm in the very beginning of the slide, I mentioned multifamily is at a minimum 3 years. None of that 3 months or 9 months fix and flip stuff. Okay. The way I do it, it's always 50% in the first year and 50% in the second year. If I need to really be accurate, like for example, like I knew, for example, right, argument for discussion purposes, I knew before closing my interest rate is going to jump up to 6.6%. This is a crappy deal. Okay, but possible because almost at 15%. Then I will really get granular and figure out, okay, in my first year, is it 50% or 60% or 70%, right? Because what will happen is if I can, the more I can do in the first year, it changes my economic vacancy. What's the economic vacancy? If you're charging $1,000 a month, right, that's your pro forma rent. If we're taking 800 existing rent to 1,000, $200 is your economic vacancy, right? That's the difference between your full potential and what you're actually getting. So imagine that $800 unit guy live on property for the first 12 months. You're not getting that $200, right? So that's 20% economic vacancy right there. Okay. If he was late, right? If you had to give them rental discount, if they don't pay rent, it happens. People don't pay rent. Now whole $800 is gone. So if you have one property, then you're 100% economic vacant. Somebody don't pay rent. If you have 2 units, that's 50%, right? So that's why multifamily start to make more sense. If you have 100 units, 1 unit not paying rent, maybe a 0.5% economic vacancy. So that's how you kind of figure this out. Now, so for example, right, let's say if I can get really aggressive. I looked at my rent roll, majority of people expired in the first year. Okay, so I can probably reduce this thing down to, let's for argument's sake, reduce by 10%. Hold on, something's wrong. Should go down, should go up. Why did it go down? Hold on a second. What the heck? Hold on. There we go. So your cash on cash went up, okay? And your internal rate of return, it slowed down a little bit. So that's something else. I'll look into it later. But you can kind of see the better I do pushing everybody to $1,000 rent, the more money I make, right? Payroll is kind of static unless you start making them work overtime. But assuming expenses stay still, you increase revenue, then you have more cash to give to your investor, right? So that's how you solve that problem. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Next
Yes,
question.
thank you.
Yeah, economic
question is
vacancy and
Jake.
loss to
Yep.
lease.
Mhm.
Oh, good question. So economic vacancy is the catch-all umbrella. Okay. Loss to lease is the difference between your market rent. Okay, hold on. Let me back up a sec. Economic vacancy includes loss to lease, bad debt, rental discount, even employee units, right? Anything from your 100% gross rent. Loss to lease is the difference between that person still in their 12 months contract getting $800 rent when you have an upgraded unit or same level of this guy's 800 unit, but you're able to rent it at $1,000. So it's called a loss to lease because you're losing money to that existing lease. So it's a subcategory of economic vacancy. Oh, you got some really good dictionary terms. Go to my website.
What's the one where that's actually physically empty, like when people are moving in and out, and then you have to repair? What's that kind of vacancy called? And
That's just
how do
called
you
vacancy loss.
still
Yeah.
vacancy loss?
Mhm.
Cool.
All right. What else? It's all good.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. What else do you guys want to know? Oh, yeah. I want to show you this. What's the best market in 2023? Best markets for 2023. Well, I'm betting on Florida. So why Florida? Florida, Florida, it's a very enjoyable state, right? In terms of climate, entertainment, and everything else, okay? But it's a sleeper state because it doesn't meet a lot of data analytics. What I mean by that, if you run the median household income in Florida, you'll be pleasantly surprised it's very low. But if you understand Florida, which is a state for retirees, retirees don't make income. They have a lot of money, right? There's a lot of college students in Florida. So from a median household income, you're like, how the hell do you guys, you saw the chart, $500,000 homes. Why is your economic median household income less than $100,000 when you have all that $500,000 homes? Because they sold their California homes to pay cash and or pay a large down payment, and they're on cruise ship all the time, every other weekend or every other week, right? So it's different because retirees, they are always out spending money, right? So the talk that I mentioned earlier, hey, I want the contractor to come over to spend money. So the bartender gets nice tip and they can go car wash or whatever, right? Enjoy their Starbucks coffee. And even the barista gets nice tips. That's what retirees do. Okay. And the second part of that is it's Disney World. Everybody goes to Disney World, right? So you've got kids, you're going to Disney World. If you're younger, you're going to Disney World, and that thing is not going anywhere. So you have that constant tourism coming in, bringing money from all the other 49 states. Okay. Other markets I like, Austin. I love Austin. Just too damn expensive. So that nice little interest rates kind of give me a little bit of breathing room to look for deals, but still haven't found anything. There's a lot of good markets up to your forte. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I know. Tampa with the hurricanes. I have people tells me like, hey, I refuse to invest in Houston because the floods. Well, Houston floods. I used to live in Houston. My uncle got flooded. My uncle is not running away from Houston. The entire city of Houston is not running outside to other cities because flood. But you have property insurance. You just unfortunately pay, like I do, $1,600 per unit on an apartment complex, and you push rent on everybody else, and they just keep coming. So natural disaster, good insurance. Like, I mean, same thing, right? California, you guys have your forest fire. I don't see anybody just run out because forest fire. You just rebuild. So, yeah, it's a nuisance, but oh well. So Sonny, you invest in Houston. Okay, let's see. The preferred rates waterfall versus direct split. Is there one better than the other? Is there one common than the other? 8%, 70-20, yes. There are as common as hamburgers. What I mean by that, I see just as many of 80-20 split and preferred return. So what I do worry about is when things get a little too complicated. Okay. Here's what you as an investor, you need to kind of have a mindset, or at least watch out for it. Nobody wants to volunteer their time. So we all need to get paid, right? You have a W-2 job, 1099, whatever. Everybody wants to get paid because we need money to eat, right? To put a roof over our head, to take our kids to vacations. We all need money. So these sponsors, they get paid from these kind of deals, right? Whether it's a straight split, 80-20, 70-30, that's how they make money. Because for my starting, SA Marco property, I answer most of the call, right? And, credit to myself, pat on the back. Nelson made a big post saying that I was carrying the team and we're looking at cash out refi within 12 months. The interest rate kind of moves, but we're now looking to cash out refi $2 million, 50% out of the 4 million that we put in 1 year, right? So that's not because, Chris just bought it and forget it. I'm on these property manager all the time saying, hey, where's the money? Where's money? Why are you spending this? Why are you spending that? I just got off a phone call with an eviction company today talking about how quickly we can evict more people, right? So those takes time, and I love what I do. I mean, I can do this everywhere. And I'm one of those weirdos that look at 100 homes, single family homes, and still not buy one, right? So I love real estate. So talking to this is like talking to all you guys, friends. Well, I love sharing this stuff. So it doesn't feel like work to me, but I still need to pay for my mortgage. So that's 80-20. Things getting kind of crazy when you're talking about, okay, give you all your money back, right? You hear some common terms about return all investor money, and now you have infinite return. I get kind of, one day when I'm rich enough, I will be 100% passive, right? Give all my money to my fellow colleagues. Hopefully one day, some of you guys. But when they start kind of throw a sales pitch at you, it's kind of, for me at least, distasteful. Because in a infinite return perspective, yes, you gave me all my money back, but the next time you gave me $1, that is still an infinite return. You gave me $100, that is still an infinite return. You gave me $10,000, that is still infinite return. Well, I feel a lot worse if you give me $1 versus $10,000, even though it's still infinite return, right? So what does that really mean to you and as an investor? And then you start talking about waterfall, things getting kind of crazy. They achieve a certain threshold and then they get paid extra, okay? That's when you need to look at, okay, what is that threshold? Because Phoenix, Arizona, for example, appreciated so fast. A lot of my colleagues make a ton of money, okay? But the sponsor make majority of their money by selling, okay? If you look at some of the PPM or some of the projection, you'll see that by selling, the property makes like $2 million just selling, right? So you as a GP could just buy and sell, buy and sell. I mentioned earlier, it shouldn't be a 3-year. When you get into multifamily, it should be at least 3 years, not in these, get rich quick scheme, right? So why do I do that? And why do I tell you guys that? Because compound interest kicks in very quickly. If I double your money, or I can make $2 million for every property that I sell, 1 million becomes 2 million, 2 million becomes 3 million, 3 becomes 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. Who's going to live in an apartment complex that's $7,000 per month rent? We're not all in New York or California. So, because soon as we kind of talked about property tax, right? Soon as you sell, Uncle Sam wants their tax or government wants their tax. You now have to carry that property tax at 7 million, 10 million. Then the only thing you can do as a sponsor is boost rent. And if they don't understand the market well enough, they will price out the Starbucks guys. They will price out the construction guys. They will price out the doctors. And then now you're stuck. And you as the investor just lost a ton of money.
So Chris, actually, let me rephrase this question to explain what does preferred rates mean. It's more of pretend I have 2 exact deals, but operated by 2, and I'm giving the option of, let's say one of them says, I'll give you 8% preferred return. And then if we'll do a 70-30 split, but if it hits, say, 18% IRR, then from then on is 60%. So it's kind of, there's multiple layers with the waterfall versus, hey, there's another person that's, this is the exact same deal. And what they'll do is 80-20. So if I'm looking at the numbers are the same, the rent, as an investor, what does that actually mean? Do I get, say, that 8% per year, or am I still getting rent, quarterly distributions, or say, if I'm doing the 80-20, does it mean I don't get paid at all until it sells, and then at that point you get your 80? What does it look like from us in terms of distributions?
Okay.
Regularly?
Oh, thanks for rephrasing the question. So let me use this, what you guys seeing on the screen, as an example. You're still seeing this, right? The Excel? Okay. So what this tells you is that you as an investor, you're expecting to get 4.8% cash on cash every year. Okay. $100,000, you get $5,000 every year. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound very sexy. Okay. So what some of the syndicator will do is say, I'll give you an 8% pref. Okay. So what that means is I will pay you the 5% the first year, I owe you 3. Next year, I owe you 11. 8 plus 3. Okay. If I still fall short, now it gets added to the year after. For a passive investor, it's a safer way to say, oh, at least I will get 8%. Okay. Because if you do come short, you have to make it up. And it's the fault of the GP that you miscalculate. Okay. So, and if you come out, if they don't hit their preferred return, the GP don't get paid. LPs or the passive investor gets paid first. Let's say if we continue, you keep coming in only short. When the property sell, you have to make me whole, right? So you have to pay all the things that was low. If there's a IRR, right, it's calculated based upon the cash coming back. If they miss that, then they get the GP make even less. If GP for whatever reason happened to sold it for a very high price, a big paycheck at the end, then they want to make you whole as an investor. And because they achieve what was the number, 17% IRR, 18% IRR, now they can make more money at the back end. So from a payment perspective, some of the investor likes it because they know, hey, I can count on the 8%, right? Easy math. If you short, you owe me, we'll sell it at the end. I particularly think that's a little bit more riskier investment because you're counting on the appreciation heavily in the back end, right? So if the property is not able to make a strong cash flow, that means you barely break even. And a lot of things can happen. So that's that part. 80-20, 70-30 is very easy. For every dollar, you get 70 cents or 80 cents, and they keep 20 or 30 cents. So in this particular, if I scroll over here.
Right. With the 80-20 though, like, does it mean that they're not going to get annual payments or distributions then? Because the other one, you said that there's they get the 5% that cash and cash plus another 3 to make it up to you.
You talking about the pref or just the split?
Like the 80-20 one. Yeah.
Yeah. The 80-20. So if we look at this, right? Year one, this is how much we're putting as equity. Cash flow. Okay, this row right here. As a passive investor, you need to look at this line. This tells you that before anybody gets paid, how much profit there is for the investor. On a 70-30 or straight split, everybody just take the number and multiply by the percentage. You get paid, depend on the sponsor. Some of them do monthly. I particularly do quarterly. So the total sum, this is an annual, right? 1 year. So 80%, 70% of that goes to the passive investor. 30% goes to the sponsor. You have to subtract out the asset management fee first, then you do your split. On a 8% pref, let's say there's only, we calculate this only 5, right? So all 563 minus 56, call it 500 even, right? All 500,000 go directly to the investor. GP does not get paid. We kind of talked about in this scenario, right? The average is only 5. So if the pref is 8 and every year never go up, let me see, does this one have a percentage? Yeah, you see, it never ever reach 8%. So that means investor takes all of this money. So how would you like to work 5 years not getting a penny?
So that's also like a red flag as when investors are trying to learn how to read this too, to make sure that the numbers actually looks fair and makes sense that they have enough to cover what they're paying out to the investors, plus there's still something left for the sponsors.
Yep.
Mhm.
And that's why I want to do a underwriting class. There's a lot of ways to play with the numbers, but if you ground yourself on some of the basic fundamentals, then when you start to seeing curveballs and trickeries, then you're like, oh, I don't know, right? Because anybody can post 15% IRR, double your money in 5 years, whatever, and they all eventually looks the same. And then, if you don't understand the market, why they think they are doing XYZ, then you just, no better than going to casino.
And then when we work with syndicators, when we're looking at their offers, do we usually get access to look at their Excel sheets? Or can we ask to look at those?
You can ask. It should be nice of them to or actually professional might not be the right term. It should be nice enough for them to give it to you. At a minimum, absolute minimum, they should give you the property financials, which is the T12 and rent roll. And you can do your own calculation to see if you believe what they're telling you.
Gotcha.
I had sponsors that asked me to participate in their team. I underwrote their numbers and I don't see how they came up with their numbers. And I say, no, thank you. And they're not doing very well here in Austin. When is the underwriting session? Annie? That's a question for you.
It's in my head. It's in my head. I'm creating a new series called Grill a Syndicator so
There
that
you
I
go.
could look at these numbers and then ask them questions like
Hey,
this.
Jay, come to Jacksonville. Come to the tour. I'll show you how we actually meet the numbers. And then at Jacksonville, I'll show you our weekly ownership call where we really drill everybody on where every number goes to. Here, you know what? This is actually, sorry. I'm very proud of the team. That's why I love talking to them about how well they achieve. So let me see. Hold on. Let me bring this up real quick. We do this every week, and I just love how the team performs. So a little bit of bragging here, if you guys allow me to do that. I think Annie, you've seen some of this already. Here we go. Here, just a quick snippet, okay? Y'all can see this?
Yep, we can see it.
So this is in December this year. You're seeing some current data, and we report this every week. And I'll quickly jump over to here. So I track what we projected, which is the original underwriting, to what we achieved. Okay. Year to date, we're at 135% net income. 35% higher than what I originally underwrote. And we've been doing this quarter over quarter. I mean, this is just love it. Love every bit of it. And I'll show you guys this presentation in Jacksonville. So you can see how we operate, where the money goes. I actually went into Jacksonville. One of the things that I'm pretty detailed and anal in a way. So I actually go into, they tell me $6,000 was used to rehab unit 123. I actually went to tour the property, I think 9 months in an operation, and looked at unit 123 and say, okay, where's the stove? Where's the granite countertops? Where's the paint? I checked, making sure that about $6,000 is actually spent in that unit. And so far they all checked out. So I'm pretty anal about it. What else? Keep the question coming. I'm really enjoying all these. So I think we're pretty much at the question and answer session now.
Yeah, and then can you also go over like say we want to work with a syndicator, what is the process like? Like what kind of like
Oh,
the K1 stuff or like yeah.
Yeah, there's actually, you know what? Why don't we go through some of these questions? Hang on.
Yeah, and like when do distributions take place or when is it common to start?
Here you go. Okay, so if you guys want to connect with me, here's my website and all my contact information is there. So let's go over some of the common questions too. How often does distribution gets paid? Generally, we don't pay out for the first 6 months after takeover, because we still need to, implement the business plan. A lot of it has to do with, like, for example, the starting. We immediately went in to do landscaping and exterior paint, right? Putting in the new staff, give them about a month or two, get acquainted to the tenants and figure out what what is really happening, what's causing the problem at the property, so they can start to adjust the business plan if need to. That's why we don't distribute in the first 6 months. After that, it's quarterly, right? So if you start the clock, the first 6 months, no distribution, and then you can get distribution on the 6th month or the 9th month, which that one time will catch you up for everything else. And after that is quarterly. All that, how often you get paid should be spelled out in the private placement memorandum, PPM, that you have to sign basically a contract. So some syndicator will do monthly soon as the closing happen. Some of them do it 3 months after, monthly every after, or quarterly like the way I do it. Okay. What does it mean? Let's see what else.
And then it's like how at the end of the year and the taxes, how do those things work out?
Yes. So at the end of the year, we will file a company property tax. Okay. And every profit and loss, all the investors get issued a K1. The best thing is the first year, because we always do cost segregation and bonus depreciation. A good rule of thumb, let's say you make a $10 million purchase. Okay. Wait, hold on. Yeah. So a good rule of thumb is 30% should be bonus depreciated. So if you purchase $10 million property, you can expect a $3 million loss, paper loss, to offset against your passive investment. So in case you guys don't know, there's an active income and a passive income. Active income is anything you have to be there to earn, W-2. If you're not there, you're not making money, you get fired. Apparently, STR is an active income, thanks to the STR loophole. So W-2, okay, anything that you don't have to be there to still make money, stock purchases, day trading, what else? Forex exchange, buy and sell gold. No, buy and sell gold might be active, but those things are passive. So if you do a passive LP investment, say you have $300,000 paper loss, it only offsets your earning from your stock purchase, day trader, not your day income, unless you qualify for what's called a real estate professional status, rep status. Then your active and passive income are combined, your passive loss, negative 300, subtract from the total. Okay. So K1 is very exciting for the first year. After that, it could be a positive number, it could be a negative number.
Then how about upon the exit? Like if when you sell, then isn't there going to be a giant recapture on depreciation? Then what's the strategy on offing that part?
It's
1031 exchange.
not as an LP, you cannot. Okay. That's why I have a JV side and an syndication side. Syndication cannot be, unless everybody decide to 1031 into the next property, which most cases are 30 to 60 investors. Very hard to come to an agreement. Okay. I've seen good friends of mine in Phoenix, Arizona, did it maybe twice. Okay. Because they're rolling into a bigger property, but you have to get everybody to agree. Joint venture, you can do that easier. How do you
Like,
You
can I
have to
just
have-
reinvest in another syndication that's also doing a depreciation? I mean, the cost seg would that help?
that will be the preferred route, right? You take it's a numbers game now, right? Because like in my case, I put in 100 and I got 90,000 paper loss against my primary income. Okay. So from a tax perspective, don't quote me on this, I'm not CPA, so double check. My total capital into the deal is now $10,000. Okay. Look at your PPM. Some of them says return of investment. Some says return on investment. The difference between on and off. Off, basically, we're taking your money and give it back to you. So if you give me 100,000 and I get every 8% distribution, I'm giving your money back to you, call it $10,000. Then it's $100,000, 90,000, 80, 70, so forth. Eventually becomes zero under the return of investment. Return on investment, your baseline do not decrease. If I give you 10,000, you make 10,000. You pay taxes on the 10,000. What's the difference? When you sell, the property now may double its money that we talked about, right? So your 100,000 now becomes 200,000. Well, if your basis is zero, your net profit is 200, right? But if you're on the return on investment, your investment is still 100,000. Your profit is 100,000. Okay, so you're taxable at 100,000 versus taxable at 200,000. This is where things kind of get crazy. I haven't talked to my CPA about how this works. What happens if I roll my 100,000 into the next deal? Right? On the return of, because over time, I got my money back, I spend it, right? I mean, any reasonable investor will spend their money, right? So I spent my 100,000. When you sold, I only really have 100,000 in my hand. Do I now still have to pay taxes after I reinvest 100,000 into the next deal? And now I'm taxable 100,000. So hopefully, yeah, see, that math will be kind of crazy, because if you remember, originally I put in 100, I got a $90,000 discount, depreciation. So if I reinvest another 100 into the next deal, I expect to get another 90. 90 doesn't offset another 100. So maybe you end up with taxable income of 10,000. Depends on what happens. But on the next one, you just take the 100 and put it in. It's easier. So again, that's all in the PPM. That's an advanced topic that you can start thinking about.
Cool. And then I have another question is on earlier you talked about the refinancing of the loans. So pretend in like year 4 or something, you build enough equity. Pretend like it's like that Jacksonville project. You guys have earned so much equity, and then you do a cash out refinance. So what happens to that capital? Does that get returned back to investors, or does it just go to the GPs first?
In the PPM, that is actually considered. So, okay, a couple terminology, right? It's anytime money goes to the investor, it's called a distribution. Anytime we ask money from the investor, it's called a capital call. You know, fancy term for withdrawal and deposit, right? So a distribution is anytime we give you money, right? So when we refi, we're giving money back to the investor. That distribution is also at the split. Okay. If you're on a preferred return or a waterfall return, that goes into part of that calculation. For example, the 8% pref, where I'm averaging 5%, that distribution go towards catch-up payment to catch up all the money that it's owed. And then perhaps, depending on the PPM, what's left over is the 70-30 split.
Is there a way like they made so much that they can just go like, hey, I'm going to buy you guys out?
I've seen it.
Oh, ooh.
I've seen it. Yeah. What they'll, so I should say it this way. PPM is highly customizable. Okay. And it's different from every deal. It's not your standard contract, like a single family contract, right? Every state is exactly the same, or every CT in the same state is exactly the same, whether you buy or sell. It's not in commercial. even our purchase agreement is completely drawn up from scratch by legal attorneys, right? And then PPM is 100%, drawn up from investor hiring a lawyer. I mean, a sponsor hiring a lawyer to do that. So and also keep in mind, the same PPM from the same sponsor might not be the same every time. So don't think that, hey, I invest 10 times with John, so I don't need to look at the next one. Some of that nuances of distribution on or of changes your tax situation, and then how they want to buy you out or not, right? I've seen the buyout cost to be a set value. For example, they arguably, right, I'm making up numbers, right? Don't quote me on this. Say we bought a property for $100,000 a door, and they say, okay, we're going to double your money. But if I can sell this thing even more at $160,000 a door, okay, I as a GP, because I really knocked it out of the park, okay, so I'm going to buy you out at $170,000 per unit, okay. So you're like, oh my God, if I double my money, this thing's worth 165. GPs, a sponsor is willing to pay even more to buy me out. Maybe it's worth $200,000 a door. Who knows? But I've seen it. They set a price, and there are other people set it based upon appraisal report. So it's all depending on some investor I talk to. They say, hey, I met my investment goal, right? Cash me out. I'm good, right? Some people wants to enjoy the whole journey. Hey, this is a great ride. Let's just stay on. I think I have one or two investors came out and kind of asked, hey, can we hold it longer than 5 years? Because, XYZ reasons. I'm like, well, I can't, because it's already written in the PPM that we're going to exit at a certain time. So if you want to extend longer, I need to have all the investor agree, and then we need to update the contract, which is the PPM. Good questions. What else?
I think that's it for me so far. It has a lot of questions too.
No. Hey guys, so don't get too. I think a lot of first-time investors get kind of worried about all the technical terms and this and that, right? And kind of get overwhelmed and get scaredish. I teach Annie probably seen this. I bring my kids to these apartment complex events, right? Because I want to show them a different world on how to make money. But I fully understand that not every one of them is going to kind of click and get it, right? So whenever I educate my kids, I tell them, like, it's just like riding a bicycle. It's scary the first time. You might get hurt and fall off the bike a few times. But if I ask my teenage kids, say, hey, now you're good at bicycle, go drive a car, they will be scared out of their mind, just like the first time they ride a bicycle. But to me, I drove 30 years. It's second nature to me. It's kind of part of that growing process, right? It was scary the first time to go to high school. It was scary the first time to go to college. Now you go back to college, you're like, what's the big deal? It's really not that different between single family and residential. If you just kind of ground yourself to the commonality, and then the rest of it, just let the professional. And I did STR, I did long LTR. I didn't do fix and flip, but I was a realtor, I was a broker. I did a lot of stuff in the residential side. That stuff was harder than it is on commercial side. So I think it's much, much easier. Anybody can learn it.
Sure. Well, thank you, Chris, so much for your time. Really appreciate you always giving us golden nuggets of wisdom. So we're going to be doing more of this in 2023 because we actually the number one request for us to teach about was about multifamily syndications and underwriting. So we definitely will be doing more on that. I've recorded this and I'm going to be sending this out to people probably on Friday. And then if you guys still have questions, go ahead and hit Chris up. Chris is very active on our Facebook group, and you guys can also reach him there or through christowrealestate.com/connect. So thank you again, everyone, for your time. So we're going to hopefully catch you guys back tomorrow night for our very last class of the session. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.